Hello, everyone. And today we have another amazing woman, another amazing athlete, an Olympian, member of US beach volleyball team, Lauren Fendrick. Welcome. Hi, Lauren.
Thank you so much for having me.
You ended up in sports, and how did it become a career?
Sure. Yeah, my parents played a lot of tennis growing up, and for them it was what they did on the weekends, what they did for recreation, what they enjoyed doing. So I saw sports at a young age as fun, and I would play with them. That was my first sport, and growing up, uh, it was an outlet for me where I felt safe, had fun. Um, it was one of the two ways I could get out of doing chores too, school or sports. So I tended to seek those opportunities. I played 5 different sports in high school and then played indoor volleyball at UCLA. Um, saw a beach volleyball professional tournament after college and was like, what? You can get paid to play outside in the sand in a sport that I thought I knew how to play, but is actually a completely different sport. There are some similarities, but not as many as I thought. Um, and so I started at the bottom, kind of learning a sport after college, um, and fell in love with it, was so passionate about it. And it took me probably 5 years before I started traveling on the international tour. And it might, my first tournament win was 8 years after I started playing. Um, and it was kind of like just a slow building process for me. Every season got a little bit better. And for me, I feel like it was consistent work over a long period of time that finally got me as an alternate for the 2012 Olympics and then into the Rio 2016 Olympics. Um, After that, my goal was to have a child immediately and come back and play in Tokyo. But as a lot of people probably know, you can't just plan on when you have a child. And so, yeah, it was a lot of kind of like stop, start. Okay, am I continue my career? Okay, I'm not pregnant. Okay, but I want to still play. And like how to go back and forth. And then Zika was involved in that too. So, like,
Right.
I traveled to Brazil for a tournament. So I had to wait like a period of time to try for a child after that. It was a lot of, opportunities to play with really good players. And I'm like, okay, maybe I have children later. All sorts of just kind of considerations on trying to time and do both, like you're at the peak of your physical um, athleticism, or even, maybe not at your peak, like, and also for, having a child. So it was a lot of difficult and complicated decisions that you can't even really, control. Like if you want to have a child, it doesn't mean you get to have a child.
Right.
um, it can be a very difficult process for a lot of people.
Was volleyball your primary career and source of income, or were you supporting yourself with some work here and there, some projects that you've been working on as part of supporting yourself being an athlete?
Yeah, my first 9 years, I had another source of income. So it took me a long time to be fully um, fully have my income come from beach volleyball. And part of that is our sport and how the funding works. A lot of it comes from sponsorships. And um, part of that was just, that was what was required for me in my path. And yeah, it certainly made it tougher. And I always thought, oh, if I can just focus on volleyball, like imagine how much better I would be. And I
Right.
got that opportunity in the second quad, and I was able to make the Olympics. But I think almost looking back, I needed something to balance my, singular focus.
Right.
I got very, very narrowly focused on every single decision I made through that quad was, is this going to increase my performance or is it not? And something as simple as, you know, am I going to, travel to this wedding or drink at a party or, like every single decision, I kind of ran through that lens for 4 years.
Right. And so at some point it was okay, I'm done dedicating my entire life to the sport. I also need some room for living the life. Otherwise, I'm kind of living the life in the sport, but outside of that, nothing is even allowed to remotely come close.
Yeah, and I think I don't know if it was having children that did that, but it happened around that time where I realized, oh, okay, I don't need to be. I think I'm a better volleyball player when I don't focus completely. Like I needed some balance, and it's
Right.
okay. Like I need to be hyper focused at some moments, and then I need to give my mind, body, um, a break, and then come back to the hyper focused.
For sure. How do you think your motherhood impacted the why of your sport?
Hmm. Yeah. Um, I think I saw the impact that I can have with young people, young women especially, and how I want my daughter to not necessarily play sports, but like at least be like exposed to being active and how vital that is for just so many character traits and development and confidence and um, you learn so many things by being active and by participating in team sports. And I wanted her. I want her, like she's not of age to really do any sort of organized sports, but like I want her to have role models, people to look up to, people that can inspire her. And so I think I realized that potential to have that impact on people. And so that's a definite big change in my why. And another one I think would be knowing the difficulties that mothers face, not only in coming back to sports, but having a career, and how it seems like our culture is, or the US culture is so, I don't know, we don't talk about it. We don't support mothers in a way that uh, values motherhood, that values, the focus on the next generation and these people who are going to be the future leaders of our community. And in order to really uh, focus on the children, you have to support mothers and fathers too, because fathers support mothers or spouses. It's the whole family unit. And I didn't realize what it takes, and now I do. And so I'm pretty passionate about changing that for families moving forward.
Was motherhood for you everything you expected in the sense of your capabilities?
No. I thought, okay, I'm gonna have my baby. Um, you know, at 6 weeks, I'll be, back in the sand, maybe playing tournaments with my baby in tow, and she'll just be there on the sidelines. Maybe my mom will watch her while I'm playing, but yeah, it was just gonna be same thing that I was doing before, just with the baby in tow. And
Right. So what was the reality?
Um, the reality, first of all, I think at 6 weeks, I was back in the gym, and I probably was doing too much my first pregnancy. My second pregnancy, I took it a lot slower, and I found that I've actually rebounded faster. So my first pregnancy, I think I tried to do too much too early. And my first competition, partially because of scheduling. My recovery happened over the off season. So I played in the first tournament back at 8 months postpartum. So not quite the 6 weeks that I was, or like 3 months that I was thinking I might be able to do. Um, and yeah, I needed both sets of grandparents helping me. Um, in addition to a really supportive husband. Like I needed so much support. I had some sponsors who stayed with me. I needed that. So there's the financial, the time, and just having people help with
Right.
everything that I needed to be able to be successful in my return to sport. I didn't anticipate all those needs, and I certainly don't see it as something that we promote um, as being available. Like you
Right.
have to go out and create it.
Would you say that professional athletes sometimes need to be held back a little because of their physical ability and because of their drive to succeed at anything they take on? It's almost that there has to be a message that you have to, somebody needs to tell you that, because a lot of the times athletes themselves, they're not too kind to themselves, or they are too ambitious with their body and with their mind, because they're just are used to the culture of go, 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 achieve, 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 and over and over and over again. And then when things in life happen, whether it's rehabilitation after an injury, whether it's postpartum, there has to be someone that is going to hold you back a little so that the athlete doesn't feel guilty for not doing enough. I find that a lot of athletes struggle with not doing enough or feeling that they're not doing enough.
Yeah, it's hard because in a lot of ways, those are probably the aspects that made the athlete successful to begin with. And I don't know if there's many athletes who, even if someone told them, you know, stop, you have to stop, you're doing too much, like we don't listen.
No, I remember my husband was telling me that you're being too hard on yourself. You are working a 9 to 5, you're running a business, and you're being a mom to a under 1 year old. And he was like, okay, well, where's it going to stop? Do you want another job? Do you want 2 jobs? And I found that there had to be a point where I set it for myself, saying, well, that's going to be enough for me. I'm going to reach this point and I'm not going to push past that.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. And I guess, yeah, that's kind of what I was hinting towards, is it has to be a decision by the athlete. And I don't think anyone can decide it for them. Maybe there's conversations started that can really kind of dig into, why are you doing this? What do you want to get out of it? When's the end? Um, how much is too much? And um, I guess making sure that you're actually making these choices because you want to, and it's because it's in line with what you want out of life, and not just doing it because you don't know what else to do.
Right. The more I'm talking with people, you don't get to have an athlete who reached an Olympic level, a world championship level, without having the parents that were somewhat involved in the sport. Maybe not professionally, but at least they played it. And I find that any athlete I speak to, they always make sure that obviously their child goes and does some kind of sport, whether it's the same sport as they've done, or they at least give an opportunity for the child um, to experience it. And I find that athletes are actually building a healthier generation, because athletes have a different mindset when it comes to the health, to the body, to the movement. So they're kind of promoting it for their children, and they're driving it, versus the general public who has never been involved in the sports. And aside from that, not too many sports are available for the general public financially. Not too many sports are free to play, and you'll have to have a dedication, a financial dedication, that if you want your child to play any sport, whether it's professional or recreational, you have to budget for that. And I find that it's counterproductive when you think of the country that tries to promote health, but also restricts or kind of limits a certain demographical level when it comes to the financial threshold, who can participate in the healthy lifestyle.
Yeah, definitely. And that's definitely another thing that's been on my mind, especially over the past year, in trying to kind of expand opportunities. Last summer, one of the other players and I were supporting a organization called Starlings, and it's a volleyball organization that brings volleyball to underprivileged communities, and just kind of creates those bonds that can be created through a team, the confidence that can be built, the healthy lifestyle from just being active, and being with friends, and seeing that there's good that can be had, can be so impactful for young women. And so yeah, continuing to kind of like make sure that is part of the conversation, and part of the goal of increasing the diversity, financially, racially, just in all manners, is important. Like those are the people who are going to be community leaders in the future. And so yeah, it weighs on me to make sure that I'm finding ways to promote that. Gosh, you brought to mind like so many different things. Just the fact that the media kind of gets to tell the story and to control the narrative, and it seems like they react to the whims of, I don't know, like kind of like the general mass, instead of like really diving into people's stories. And you really only hear about the winners. You don't really hear much about second place, or even like the average, maybe the 50th ranked tennis player or something like that. And I feel like maybe with social media, there's an opportunity for sharing more of those stories. Like there are some accounts, like the brand Together, started by Chloe Kim and Sue Bird and Alex Morgan, and is it Simone Manuel or Simone Biles, I think. I can't remember the fourth person. And they're trying to like highlight just the female athlete brand that has been so underrepresented. And the data is coming out, kind of showing how we are consumers, and we are worth the investment of money, and to tell our stories and to inspire generally half the population. But even beyond that is like, I think it's important to get out more, I don't know, like meaty stories instead of like just sensationalistic, um, you know, whatever grabs our attention for a moment. And so it's like it's a double-edged sword. Like with social media, it seems like everyone's attention spans are getting shorter and shorter, and you have to do so much more work to try and capture people's attention. um, but it also feels like there's an opportunity for like smaller stories to get shared and promoted, and just a little bit more of a realistic journey of you know I personally think that's interesting. I don't know how everyone else feels, but like, maybe we hear some stories about people who didn't make it, or yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I have an answer for it, but I know something should change.
So with you, you are thinking of so many beautiful ideas of how you want to impact the world. Are you partnering already with someone to see how you can kind of shape that that story, that narrative around what you have to say?
No. I mean, I meet with my sports psych. I talk with my husband, and I think I've always hoped that, if I keep my ears open, that like the right things will come along, and whether it does or not, we'll kind of make for it a smooth transition or not. And all I can do is try to prepare as best I can, and have the support of you know good people around me to know that, yeah, it might not be easy. It might take some soul searching, and change in I guess behavior, and mental habits, and all of that. But I'm I'm finally at a point where I feel like I'm excited for that challenge and transition. I don't want it to happen quite yet, but it's taken me a long time to get to that point. And so it feels good to know that when I decide to step away, I feel like I'm going to be okay.
I find that with athletes and coaches, there has to be some sort of planning for the life outside of sport. And as excited the coaches are for the devotion to the sport of an athlete, I find it's a much healthier path if they were to say, you got to do this, no matter what. Because I remember when training, I was training 6 days a week. And then on my rest day, I'd go mountain biking because there was so much thrill in it and the community was amazing. And I'd come back even more excited to train. But then I was held back by the coaches. What if you break a leg mountain biking? What if you're not recovering fully? And
Mhm.
so when I was drawn out of that life outside of sport, I started going downhill. It was just not sustainable to only live in that part of who you are.
Yeah, I definitely found that too. When I was able to kind of completely focus on volleyball, which I had wanted for so long. um, I, achieved a lot of success, but who knows if, I would have achieved more success if I would have had a little bit more balance, and a little bit more um, just ability to like let myself enjoy other things.
How's your relationship with the coach? How much discussion goes into your outlook altogether, not just goals in the sport?
Yeah, so beach volleyball is pretty interesting in that it's a player driven sport. It's not a coach driven sport. So right now I don't technically have a coach. My husband's been my coach for a good portion of my career. But because it's a player driven sport, there isn't that sort of direction, because most relationships, are, so short-lived, or it's the coach doing one team and then they have other jobs as well. There's no like kind of holistic planning. So there is a little bit from the federation, but it's more like it it's not where it could be, should be, um, needs to be for taking care of the whole athlete, and thinking about mental health, and just kind of prioritizing those things. Yeah, I think, because I do think that when you look at the whole person and not just the athlete side of the person, like it's going to end up benefiting the athlete side of the person. So I think it's worth it for all parties to just kind of, I don't know, explore other passions and not be one dimensional. I think as much as an athlete might fight that, it will most likely benefit them. Yeah.
I find that when athletes have a certain image that a lot of the times media is portraying, they identify themselves with that image and they lose sight of who they are outside of that image. And so when something changes here that is no longer matching the narrative that is out there about them, I think that's where the inner conflict begins, the presentation versus the reality, and the mismatch of the two, and the fear of letting down the image that is here.
Yeah, sure. I mean, for me, I know like media's never said good things about me. So like, I just, I can't look to that for affirmation, or seek that sort of approval. I think I love what Venus said in a interview. Like any question that comes to me from the media, I just think to myself, like, they can't hold a candle to me on the court. So like, you kind of have that. I mean, I guess there's certain people who are media darlings, but I think probably most athletes have more of the Venus view of, or the relationship with media. Like, and I don't know why that is. I don't know if it's just the nature of the business, that like they're never gonna fully be able to portray, exactly what the athlete wants or feels, or what it is. I always, I remember hoping like, oh, like, they're gonna like say nice things about me, or like now they see, effort I put in, or whatever it is. And yeah, I've never gotten the satisfaction. So looking to find your motivation and your inspiration from inside, which is important regardless of media. You don't want to be doing it for family, you don't want to be doing it um, for really anyone, except for the people who matter to you. And you're not going to get far if that's what motivates you.
To your point that media didn't really motivate you because neither of you met each other expectations.
Well, maybe it motivated me to hear
right
negative things,
but I find that the motivation that the media did not fulfill could go into the pursuits of yours, like you're saying, I support young athletes, women, I'm able to impact that portion of society. And I find that it doesn't matter how big the audience is, that you're impacting, as long as you're making a difference in somebody else's life, whether it's 20 young girls who are on their rise in the sport, or whether it's, I don't know, 1,000 people who are reading your blog where you are telling your true story that is not going to be twisted and turned by the media and portrayed the way they want it. You have a way of telling your story that is true to you, and you're not afraid to say things as they are.
Yeah, yeah. And that's what makes for like such a richer, fuller experience, I think, is having some goals and mission beyond just winning.
For sure. And I love that. I love having a mission beyond winning, because a lot of the times people remember the winner for one day, and then they lose sight of that winner, in a week or so, and then nobody remembers that person anymore, especially if they retired, for example. So I find that people really retire fulfilled when they know that they've impacted someone else, whether it's publicly or not.
Yeah, definitely.
So I think it was a very wholesome conversation today, where we touched on so many different things that were deep enough to give people a different perspective, a different dive into sports and what it is, whether you're an Olympian or whether you're a provincial level player, it still has an impact on you and people around you.
I appreciate you having me and asking such thoughtful questions and kind of filling that void of I don't know, talking about this side of sports and transition, and just giving a fuller view of what it's like.
Thanks so much, Lauren.
Thank you.